This is a recording for the CUPHAT project. My name is Matthew O'Brien. Today is the 28th of August 2023 and I have here with me Sandra Houlihan. Thank you very much, Sandra. Can you confirm for the recorder that you're happy to take part in the project?
Yes, I'm happy. I'm Sandra Houlihan and I'm happy to take part.
Brilliant. And could I just get you to spell your name for the recorder, please?
Sandra, Sandra, Houlihan, Houlihan.
Thank you very much. So, Sandra, could you just tell me a little bit about maybe your early life? When and where were you born and where did you grow up?
Okay, well, my mother, her family, she grew up in Shillelagh. She married my father in 1969. He was from Clonmore, which probably would be about 10 miles here from Shillelagh. They moved to Dublin then after they got married for work for my father. So they both wanted to relocate down to the country. So when I was 4 years of age, they moved to Shillelagh. They bought, built a house and moved back down to Shillelagh. So my early life would have started in Shillelagh when I was 4, and then I would have joined the primary school here. I would have done my secondary school education in Carnew, which is about 8 kilometres, and then after my junior cert, or my intercert back then, I decided that I would go to a Coastal Uplands, which was a pre-teaching school in Rathmines in Dublin. So I would have gone to Dublin age 15, 16 and spent 2 years doing my leaving through Irish. So then I didn't teach, even though I had a choice of teaching or nursing. I wanted to travel, that was my big thing. So I didn't, back then nursing, you could travel anywhere with nursing, so I decided to train as a nurse. So then I would have done my training, and then I lived in London, went to Australia for a number of years, and then in 2004 I was married and pregnant with my eldest child, and we bought a house here in Shillelagh. So I was 32 at that stage. So I came back down to the area then.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And maybe if you could tell me or give me some insight into some memories from your childhood when you were kind of 4 or a little bit older, growing up in Shillelagh. Does anything kind of stand out to you?
Yeah, there was like the big thing I suppose was going to school, and then there was there was a little running club down here on the fair green, which is the local public pitch. There's GA played in it at the minute. There's an athletics club, so there was a little running club down there that we would have joined as a child, and then we would have been big into music. So Tullow would be about 20 kilometres from here. We would have gone in every Friday for piano lessons. So it was a very happy, carefree childhood. So yeah, lovely memories of growing up here in Shillelagh.
And when you were in school, did you play sports in school, or was that outside of school?
It was kind of outside of school. It was outside of school, so it was a small school. I'd say there was about 35 in the whole school. So you had from baby infants up to first class was in one classroom, so that was all the classes within one room, and then the other room. So it's a 2-teacher school for the whole school, and then for the second part, then you from second class up until you left, it was in the other room with the principal. Yeah.
And you mentioned running and GAA. Did you have a favourite kind of sport?
Well, I didn't really know, because I've only one sister, and my dad wasn't into sport at all. So I didn't. It was more the piano that we did. Yeah, but the running club, I remember the running club, and then they had the community games, which still to this day are held in the Fairgreen in Shillelagh. They're every June that they're held. That all of County Wicklow come down to the community games, and then they final for the national games then, which is usually in Athlone or in Limerick. I remember going to Limerick actually. So yeah.
And when you were growing up, what was social and community life like in Shillelagh?
It was quite quiet actually, because I suppose my parents didn't really drink, so we would have, if we were going out, we would kind of go to say Carnew or to Tullow or to Carlow. In Shillelagh there was 3 bars, pubs, but that wasn't really for our age group at all. So so it was quiet. The village was quiet.
And in your experience, did people from the area stay here, or did they leave to pursue work or education?
In my generation,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say a lot of people stayed really, and then anybody that did leave went, but came back again in later life, you know, or in later life as in, you know, as in older, to settle and to rear their family and to be able to send their children locally to school, you know, down memory lane.
And even since you've moved back, have you noticed any change in the community or any change in kind of life in this area?
It is quite quiet. I think over COVID and that, you know, everywhere went very quiet. But I think in the last number of years, you know, people are relocating down to Shillelagh. You know, there's a new influx of people that have no connection with the area at all relocating down, because it's very commutable, you know, to Kilkenny, to Waterford, to Dublin, to Carlow, to the bigger towns. Like, it is a very picturesque village, like, so yeah, I think there is a big influx of new people, and also people that, you know, have moved back, like myself, that would have been reared here and moved back as well.
And would you consider Shillelagh to be a welcoming area then?
Well, I think it is. I think it's a very welcoming. Community, and you know, there's loads for people to get involved in. You know, there's, as I say, there's the GA, there is the running club, we have a courthouse as well, and there's two dance classes. There's Pilates, there's yoga, and then there's a very active Tidy Towns at the minute. So they meet every Thursday at 6:30. And every Saturday at 10 o'clock, and you can see by the village now. Storm Betty didn't help, but you know, there's say flower beds coming into the village in all directions, that they maintain the courthouse, hanging baskets, the hanging basket outside the shop here, they donated that as well. So it's a very active Tidy Town. So there's loads for people to get involved in. So, and if you get involved and help, everybody is always welcome, you know.
And you mentioned that there are there's been an influx of people coming from outside the community to live in the community. What do you think has been the kind of maybe the main motivation for that change in population? Do you think it's work or remote work, or do you think it's anything to do with technology? Or
well, yeah, I'd say it's after COVID really, because people suddenly realise that, you know, you don't have to, you know, you can work from home. So, you know, I think that's a big, and it's a different, you know, it's a different way that you're not sitting in traffic or whatever heading to your work. You can sit at home and maybe only 2 days a week having to go into an office or whatever. So I think COVID, technology has helped, and people are just, you know, embracing country life and space. You know, like, you go to any city, you know, whether it's Kilkenny or Dublin or Waterford, and you can sit in traffic and just think, oh my God, how stressful is this? Where you never have that down here. And also community spirit, like when somebody, you know, if there's a bereavement, you see how supportive, you know, people are. Like, a city can be very lonely, you know, that there's loads of people, but you know, people are so busy, especially in cities, that they don't, or in big towns, they don't have time to stop and sit down and have a chat, like.
And just moving away from that for a moment, have your family ever had any interest in maybe local history, local people, or local places?
Not really. Not on my side of the family. They wouldn't have, no.
And are there any particular buildings in Shillelagh that have significance?
There is. The church. Actually the Shillelagh People's Property did a fantastic heritage trail. So it was all to do with Colathan estate, and then all the different landmarks. You know, because this is an estate village. So the Fitzwilliams built this village, you know, around their estate. So there's various fantastic buildings that would be of interest and are noted in the heritage trail.
And you mentioned as well the courthouse. Are there any other kind of older buildings in the area that maybe have historical significance, or are connected to transport or anything like that?
The train station would be one. The train station was built by Lord Fitzwilliam. So it's the main Wexford to Dublin train. So from Wooden Bridge to Shillelagh, he built his own personal train station. So that was a huge that was really important back in the day for, you know, even cattle, for people transporting them up and down to Dublin, and that would have been a very busy train, and then that closed in 1944. So that is closed in 19. There's hopefully a greenway going to be built on that old railway line from Wooden Bridge to Shillelagh.
And we're sitting here in Shillelagh outdoors. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit more about this business. This business,
Shillelagh Outdoors, started last year with myself and my two daughters, Roshan and Sive. So we basically opened our doors last year as a history and tourism shop because of the local history, and we opened it very small, one room, and we just sold local produce like fresh strawberries and brown bread. And basically we opened again this year for 2 days a week, and it is just growing organically, really. We've 2 rooms now. One room is full of arts and crafts. People come in and say, listen, you know, I make this is my passion, would you showcase it in the shop? And, you know, maybe somebody would be interested. So we've a huge array of wind chimes, tote bags, local artists. We have homemade cards, we have homemade candles, soaps, writing, local postcards. Another lady does arts and crafts. So that's all within, and reading books as well, historical books by Kevin Lee, and the Shillelagh people that I mentioned earlier, the Shillelagh People's Property book as well. That is the history and the local area. And then in another room then we have local produce. It's all fresh jams, chutneys, chocolate bars from the chocolate garden. Every week then we have fresh produce, jam, or bread, scones, drizzle cakes, sold out literally within an hour because people just come in early, grab it and go. And then we have local throws as well that I forgot to mention as well, beautiful hand woven wool throws. So it's grown organically and we just, it's really, really positive, and we're word of mouth, and also my two daughters do the Instagram and Facebook. And that's how we advertise. We recently painted our shop pink. So our next thing then is to put a sign outside. So, you know, it's a welcoming place because, as you can see, we kind of themed it on Friends, Central Park, that we have a couch and 2 seats. So people come in, sit down, have a chat, and might just want to say hello. They might want a fresh scone. They mightn't want anything. So it's a very welcoming hub that we want. We don't want people to come in and think, oh, that's not history and tourism. It's a welcoming spot to promote anything local as well. And our Clacton cheese as well. He's very local as well. It's a mature cheddar cheese that is really, really good. So we have him as well. Yeah. So we've, you know, a vast array of produce of all interest for people, of every type of person.
And do you have any interesting stories about how it got started?
I find with the shop, you have to be there yourself with your daughters. So it's very much, you know, to me, I would always say to the girls, you always have to, you know, have a pleasant smile, welcome people in. As yet, I don't think we've had any disaster, really, touch wood. Touch wood. So it's just getting quite busy, and there's a lot to do with setting up your own business. That's what I would say. And I have no experience in business, so you just learn and you make the mistakes of, you know, bookkeeping or invoicing. So, you know, it's a lot of hard work. You know, it is a big commitment, but as I say, I'm enjoying it. You know, and the girls are really enjoying it as well. So, you know.
And how important is it for you that it's family run?
Well, I think the personal touch is very, you know, very important, and also I have 2 daughters, as I say. One is very interested in history. That's the path she wants to follow. So, you know, we're planning on opening a heritage centre upstairs. So that's an interest for her. And my other daughter then, Sive, she is more business orientated. She does the books and the sum up and very much zone into that. So she and the ordering, she's like, I leave her to do the ordering and the stock taking. So that's the path I think she's going to take. And then I have a son as well who's big into carpentry. He all he wants is wood. He's in TY now. All he wants is wood. So he has made things for the shop. He's made my sign. He's made the card holder. We've a throw holder at the back that he's made. He's made the honeycomb. So he's a few orders of placemats as well. So he's involved as well. If he needs pictures hung or whatever. So they all have their little roles, and that's what I want. That it's not just one of them being interested in the business.
And who would be the biggest kind of consumers of the material? Would they be local? Would they be coming from abroad?
Well, there's a good mixture, really. There's a good mixture. We have a lot of local support, which is fantastic. And then we have, when we first, for this year, we there's a lot of Airbnbs. There's a lot of, Airbnbs like cottages for rent, all that sort of thing. So I would have, and there's another glamping. So they're all within, I'd say, within 10 kilometres. So at the beginning of the season this year, I would have dropped up an information a sheet about our opening hours, what we supply and where we are. So I would have given them to those people. So we have a good mixture. Really. And then we have just people who are right beside the shillelagh stick. So we would have a lot of people who don't know about us passing through, who only come to shillelagh for the shillelagh stick, and they see that we're opened and in they come. So it's a good mixture.
And have the goods and the produce that you sell, has that changed over time? Did you start with something and then develop it from that, or did you always kind of have this vision that you would sell kind of a bit of everything?
No, we literally opened our doors and went, I kind of said, we said, what if I was to come into a history, you want to encourage or you want to welcome is probably the better word. You want to welcome everybody. So say somebody who's living on the main street, they know all the history, but they would like to come in and support you. So everybody eats bread, so you're trying to catch and interest and welcome, everybody. So we would have started, it was the month of May last year, or month of June actually, it was the month of June we started last year, and it was the strawberry season. Strawberries are Wexford, so we start with that, and then everybody eats bread. So we started from that, and then I kind of thought, well, jam, it kind of builds. So our first produce would have been the strawberries and the breads, then we went to jams, and then we went to candles, then to the soaps. So you're kind of building, you're kind of, like I was putting myself into the position of where, okay, I'm going into a history and tourism shop, what would I like to buy? So our latest is Harry's nut butter. So people are coming in and giving us things, saying, God, it should be great if you had Harry's nut butter. Or there's a new product called Nibbed, which is cacao. They're Wicklow based. So the two factors, things that we think that people will buy and people will eat, and also they have to be Carlow, Wexford, Wicklow, because we're so south in Wicklow, we're very near these counties. So the furthest we are stocking now is Kilkenny Cusgrange in Kilkenny. It's an apple syrup, Highbank Orchard. So I would have always bought that myself for porridge or muesli or natural yogurt or pancakes. So I phoned them, and people are so welcoming because we're so small. You might think, oh, you're too small, we won't stock you. But I have never phoned somebody who said, we're not stocking you, you're too small. So it's been a very positive. And Harry's nut butter there on the shelf, that's a huge, that's really, big in. And again, Sive actually, contacted, she did all the correspondence with them. I had nothing to do with it. And because we're so small, as I say, I thought, they won't be bothered with us. But here they are, and we'll probably be ordering, I'd say, next week again from them.
So moving kind of into something that's related, I suppose. How would you view the kind of current state of tourism within the Wicklow Mountains?
I compared to last year, I think definitely there has been a big, there has been a definite improvement, or a bigger increase in people. Like we have people that have come back the second year to us. So, I met a couple recently that were here for 2 weeks, and they came in to buy something to bring home to their granny, and they said, "We'll be back. We just love it down here." There is just so much to see, and kind of under the radar, it's a little hidden gem. So no, there has been a big, and we see a lot more people, and we're only open 2 days a week. So if we're opened more, I'd imagine it'll be, and this is the end of August. So no, definitely June, July, and August. I think there was a bigger increase in people passing by and people staying in the area and exploring the area.
And what would some of the biggest challenges of tourism be to this particular area, to Shillelagh?
It's not, it's, to me, the tourism is all Paris, Cork, Glendalough. We're down here and we're struggling, to be heard or to be explored, really. So I think that's the biggest challenge, really. So we're here promoting what we have, but I think that more Wicklow tourism needs to come more down into where it's easy. Glendalough, Paris Court is an easy sell. The coaches come up there, they pull up. That's where everybody wants to go. So I think the tourism part needs to be focused more, and more attention down here.
And what would some of the kind of benefits of tourism be then to the Wicklow Mountains and again surrounding areas like Shillelagh?
Well, I think accommodation. People can really if the tourists are here, people would be more encouraged to open up accommodation. Facilities like people have come in here looking for coffee. So at the minute, to do a coffee shop or anything would totally swamp what we are about. So I don't want to go down that route. Maybe self-service coffee, but loads of people pop their heads in here saying, "Do you do coffee?" So we've nowhere. We have one place to do coffee, but if you just want to meet a friend for coffee and a scone and a chat, we don't have anything in Shillelagh. So if there was people here, if people, if the tourists were here, someone would say, "Well, this is what I'm going to do." The facilities would at the minute, people would put a lot of money and effort into a coffee shop, and it mightn't, a lot of money to set it up, and you don't know if it will work.
And which sites, trails, or locations do you think the tourists visit most in the Wicklow Mountains? I know you mentioned Glendalough. Are there any others? Well,
there's Tomnafinno Goods, or the railway walk. That's a big, and I even said to those people that were here earlier, that's a lovely walk. So that would be part of the greenway that we're hoping will come into from Archaeological to Shillelagh. That is part of and something like that would just revolutionize the area. So that you look at Waterford, you look at the Wild Atlantic, and it is it's totally transformed those areas. So that's a big walking trail. Then the work I mentioned before, the Shillelagh People's Property, the Heritage Trail, but we don't have enough footfall for that at the minute. But I suppose if we had enough people and they were there going to the air, to the different spots, it should because there's a map there and everything. The work is done, but it's just to get the tourists here to do that.
And what role do you think that upland communities can play in developing tourism? Let's say in Shillelagh.
Yeah, I suppose advertisement. Helping people. For example, rents, rates, all those sort of things. It's very hard to start a business because there's so little within, the profit margins are so hard. Luckily we're family run, so we don't have to pay staff. But if we were to pay staff, we wouldn't be able to function at all. So I suppose it's just to look at these small villages and help, to try and help, rates even, reduction in rates, to get Wicklow tourism involved, and to help little businesses to start up.
And if you were to bring a group of tourists to one particular site within the kind of surrounding area, or indeed the Wicklow Mountains, where would that be and why?
Yeah, well, I'd bring them down to Shillelagh. I would bring them to the railway walk. I would bring them to Clatton House. There's a cork tree up in the churchyard. There's lovely areas. I'd bring them in here, of course, into my shop, into Leankeely. Like there is so much, simple things to do, and it's all within a relatively small area to travel around.
So what do you think are the most important maybe kind of natural heritage aspects of the Wicklow Mountains? Is it the landscape? Is it protecting kind of habitats in nature? What do you think?
Well, I think the scenery. I think the Clatton Oak forests. People. They love to come to an area. Well, I think they like to come to an area that's small, that it's not busy. There's huge history. You can take it as it comes. It's relaxing. So I think all that. I think that's what people on holidays are looking for. Rather than having an itinerary of pulling up to an area where there's bus loads and there's crowds and you're queuing, and to me that's no holiday.
So would you spend much time kind of walking or on trails in the area at all?
There's lovely walks, yes, in the area. There's one Tomnafinogue woods. It's called the Railway Walk. So any tourists that would pop in and they're spending time in the area, we would always send them over there. Like it's about, I suppose, 4 kilometres from Shillelagh village. There's lovely walks as well. They're forestry walks up. It's called the Burney as well. So there's lovely and beautiful scenery, Sleeve Wee. There's lovely forest trails around that people would, but they're not really signposted. Like people come in here and I would tell them where to go and give them directions and that. But like the Sleeve Wee, the Burney, they'd be beautiful walks that overlooking the valleys of South County Wicklow, and they're very picturesque. But yeah, no, the biggest one would be the railway walk, Tomnafinogue walk, and people would come down even from Dublin on a day just to walk those. And they're as long and as they could be 2 kilometres, they're as long or as short as you want to make them.
And what kind of things would you see? I mean, is it all kind of
the woodlands? Well, say the Burney and Sleeve Wee is forestry. Say the Tomnafinogue woods or the railway walk would be alongside a river, and forest paths and that up through to the oak forest and that. So you could see deer, you could see any wildlife over there. Was one day I saw about 10 deer in across from the river, and I was like, oh my goodness, so they're very picturesque and would be very, very popular as well.
And even when you were younger, would you have spent much time kind of in the outdoors exploring? Or I know you mentioned you were avid into your piano.
Yeah.
Would you have spent much time kind of on any of these old trails?
I don't. In the Burney, yes, we would have gone up walking, but Tomnafinogue, the railway walk, I don't know how long that is, but that wasn't. I don't remember walking that as a child. So these are all new walkways that have been developed over the years, and hopefully, as I say, with the Greenway will follow that trail as well, which will be a huge bonus for the area.
So tell me a little bit more of the Greenway. What's the kind of the path for it?
The path, it would be on the Fitzwilliam line. So it's the old railway line from Wooden Bridge to Shillelagh. So it's about 16 3/4 miles long. So it's a lovely distance. So from Archaeological, Wooden Bridge, Aughrim, Annacurra, Tinahely and into Shillelagh, hopefully ending up in the village centre. So and it's a lovely flat, it's no railway line, so it would be a flat line.
And for you, what do you think are the most kind of either interesting or important physical features within the Wicklow Mountains?
Well, the scenery for one, and then just the history of the areas like Colatton Estate, the Heritage Trail, as I said. So they're the big pluses for us to show and to share with visitors and tourists.
And how much would you consider yourself to be from the Wicklow Mountains? Does that hold any significance for you?
Well, I suppose I'm here since I was 4, so I feel I'm very much part of it and I know it quite well. So, it would be, I think I know it quite well.
And what do you think it means then to be from an upland area? Or how would you characterise people from an upland area?
Very welcoming, very warm. Very curious as well, would always love to, like it's an Irish trait anyway, to try and work out where you're from and who you're connected and if you have any connections with the area. And we see that a lot with the American tourists actually, that they they love the history part of it, or their ancestral connection with Ireland or with an area, and that's why they come to the area, because they want to see, they've heard about an area, or that they've great ancestral parents were from an area, whatever. So yeah.
And you mentioned American tourists. Would you have tourists coming from, or like, where would the majority of tourists be coming from? Would it be the US?
Well, I think the US, yeah, there's quite a lot from the US, and the Americans love the shillelagh stick, so that's why they come to Shillelagh at the minute. They come to buy a shillelagh stick, and then there's quite a large variety of a lot of English. A lot over the summer. This summer, a lot of French, German, Swiss would pop in as well. So there's a huge, and then we have the Cheshire Home as well here in the village, and they have volunteer carers that come over, and they're generally from France and Spain, so they would be regulars in the shop as well, that pop in and buy the shillelagh postcard, or their fresh scones or whatever. So there's a good variety. But what I find about especially with the shop, people that have returned for the second year and they just love the area, and then say people from Northern Ireland would come down with their dogs, and then they just love the open space because they can bring their dogs on holidays and let them run.
And in the kind of interest of talking about history and heritage, you mentioned earlier that you went to a Gael school. Is that right? So Irish obviously had an important meaning for your family growing up. Do you think that that's something that would be felt around the area, or do you think that it's kind of, I suppose, in the minority?
I'd say it's in the minority, but I think people encourage it. I think it's because it's not a Gael-talked area that it's not. But I think it would be encouraged, like even on the back of our information cards we have Diagwich. So we're trying to embrace the Irish language as much as possible, because it's part of our culture, and I think it's very, very important to for the area. Like I suppose if we're in Ring or in the west of Ireland, the Irish language is a lot more spoken, whereas in this area it isn't. But I think it's very, very important, and that's what tourists want to see as well, the bit of Irish.
Do you ever get tourists asking you to speak?
No, but they don't. But I suppose the Americans, they'd be trying to say it, and they find it quite difficult. But we would be embracing it, and you wouldn't know, they might start asking.
And is that something that's important then for your family you know, you mentioned your two daughters as well. Would the Irish language hold significance?
Yeah, well, no, I love the Irish language, and I'd be fluent in the Irish language. So, you know, I would always embrace it and encourage it. And upstairs, we're planning on opening a heritage centre. So any Irish, you know, is always welcome in this building. You know, so yeah, I would be encouraged, and so would my two daughters and my son, yeah, and my husband.
So, if I was to ask you then, what's the best thing about living in Shillelagh? What would you say?
What is the best thing? The people, the fresh air, the space, the like. There's a lovely, you know, there's a real community spirit, and you know, bereavement especially. I lost my mother in at Christmas very suddenly, and you just see, you know, after a bereavement or some huge event in your life like that, you know, you see the value of having a good community and good neighbours about. So absolutely, I think it's the community spirit.
And if you could change one thing about the area, what might that be? I don't think there's anything really. Like I just think there's a lovely, you know, the village is looking well. You know, there's I suppose maybe more facilities maybe in Shillelagh, that, you know, a nice coffee shop or somewhere, something like that. But, you know, I think that will all happen in Shillelagh. I think we're going in the right direction, you know, because it's a small village. I think the village itself is beautiful and picturesque, the beautiful stone cottages. So I just think, you know, if we continue you know, maintaining it, you know, having your flowers in your hanging baskets and just letting it evolve, I think, you know, it'll be a little hidden gem in years to come. And speaking of years to come, what challenges do you think that, you know, communities in the Wicklow Mountains, including Shillelagh, will face in the kind of long or short term future?
Well, I just, you know, when small villages like this, I'm always afraid that, you know, the post office, the shop will close down. You know, there's a reason, you know, and that's why we open on a Friday, Saturday, because people come, they get their pensions, they have to go to the post office. I'm always afraid that if, say, post office closed down, you know, that people have no reason to come to Shillelagh or the village. And, you know, there's elderly people that have lived their whole lives here on the main street, and, you know, you just don't want a community like Shillelagh to die.
And I'll just close with a question. What does it mean to you to be from, living and indeed working in this area?
It just it's a very relaxing area. You have your good community, you have your people that come in and support you and want to see your business succeeding. So, you know, that's what's important to us, and to support people that have hidden talents, that you know, are able to make, you know, produce that we have here in the shop, that they find it hard to, you know, to sell, or to not even to sell, but to showcase their produce. So, you know, that's really good. And you know, you see people coming in with whatever, and, you know, if you sell it, you know, the smile, the happiness on their faces, you know. So, you know, you feel you're taking, but you're also giving back to a community.
And is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to add to the record?
Well, no, I would just love to see, it's a, you know, as I keep saying, it's a lovely village, and I just think that, you know, it's the hidden gem of Ireland, and, you know, we're all small down here, trying to encourage and trying to promote areas. So I just think we need as much support from the state, or from, you know, the tourism boards as possible, to try and promote, you know, areas like this.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Sandra. I'll just stop the recording now.